How's it going, guys? We're back here at the Vault with the Derick podcast. We've got another local business owner in today. This is Brent Averett. How's it going?
Hello.
Nice Mr. Knife Guy.
That's right.
All right.
AKA.
Yeah, you're right there on Sunset. You're just down the street from our Southern Utah Safe and Vault safe store. And then you're upstairs, right?
Correct. Yep.
And then
Middle building upstairs of the Sandstone Business Center.
That's right. How long have you been there?
So I've been in that location since, I guess it was September of 18.
Okay, so you've been there a minute.
A little bit.
Yeah, we looked up. I was looking for some space for a different business, and my mom was just Googling a bunch of stuff, and that complex came up, and we were looking through everything, and I don't know if they just hadn't updated their prices, but it was like extremely cheap compared to St. George.
Still is.
Yeah. And so we called on it, and they were like, we have like a 25-person waiting list.
Yeah.
I was
They
like,
just
holy cow.
barely upped it a little bit for the first time ever.
Really?
And it's owned by Jeff Chapman, who owns Chapman Construction. He owns the whole complex, and they're extremely reasonable. It's month to month. It's the best place.
Wow.
That's the only reason I put up with being upstairs.
Yeah.
That's the only drawback is my poor customers have to venture those 16 stairs.
16 stairs. Yeah. I was telling Mallory told me you were coming on. I was like, gosh, I need to stop by there because we're in basically the same business. We're cross paths a lot.
Yep.
And I've heard your name multiple times. I've just haven't
That's
stopped
a good
in.
thing.
Yeah. Well, usually because we're so close, I mean, we're a half mile away from each
Right,
other.
if that.
People will be like, well, you know them, right? And I'm like, I know of them. And so
That's cool.
and then right before we started, there's a few things that sounds like we're already going to jump on and team up on. So it'll be cool.
It's a natural fit. That'd be cool.
So why knives? What got you into knives?
It's in my blood.
Yeah?
Knives are in my blood. Yeah, I grew up as a young boy with dad and uncles. That was just part of the Averett culture, I guess. My grandfather was a butcher. My dad was a body man. He made knives out of car springs. Just, nothing professional, just screwing around. They grew up in Wyoming, and, it's a tool.
Right.
It's the knife is the original tool. It's the first tool. And my uncles taught me how to play mumbly peg and how to throw knives, and it's just always been a thing. And apparently there's a lot of people that have knives in their blood. There's a huge knife community everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm. How long has this been like your career? Or are you just doing it now? You said that you'd been doing it for a couple years. Kind of give me a little bit of background on that.
Yeah, so I've been in St. George since 18, but Mr. KnifeGuy, the business, was actually born in 2000.
Okay.
So we have been in business for 22 years this year.
Wow.
And yeah, it's kind of an interesting progression. I've always loved and collected knives since Boy Scouts. Got my first Boy Scout knife and just collected them along the way, not really knowing much about them. Just they look cool.
Yeah.
A lot of cheap knives that look cool. And I remember it was back in 2019. I was at a bed and breakfast on an anniversary watching the QVC, Cutlery Corner.
Yeah.
Where they sell the knives. And they had 5 tactical knives for $39.95. And I was looking at those 5 knives, and I'm like, ooh, 2 of those are pretty cool. I want those 2 knives. And I bet if I bought them, all 5 of them, I could sell the other 3 and make my money back.
Yeah.
So I did. And then the next week they had, I think it was like 100 knives for $200. And so I did the same thing, I asked permission from my ex-wife, of course, that I could invest $200 and promised her that I'd make it back plus.
Yeah.
And that's where Mr. KnifeGuy was born, just out of my house, and did that. And as I got into the industry, at the time I was a senior web application developer for Intel.
Okay.
This is what I did. Got a degree in information technology and semiconductor technology. And so I built my own e-commerce website.
Yeah.
And got MrKnifeGuy.com URL. Thought that was kind of a clever name. People still comment on that. And that's how it started.
And then you just rolling.
Yeah. And then in 2008, I was remarried, and my present wife and I were both working in corporate and just sick of it, just burned out, just done.
Yeah.
And we decided to quit our jobs and start up a an organic freeze-dried food store in Chandler, Arizona called Foodwise, which did really, really well. And in the corner of Foodwise was Mr. Knife Guy.
Got you.
And so that's when I got my storefront and all my dealerships, my Benchmade dealership, my Schoen dealerships, and Emerson and Microtech and all the big names. By then I'd learned that all those QVC knives were crap. We don't sell those anymore. And so now, we become quite a knife aficionado, an expert, enthusiast, rights activist, and everything knives.
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool to hear stories of hey, it started in my basement, started at my house, started in my garage. That's pretty much everything I've ever done as well.
You come to realize, here I've got this knife store. No, it's a shipping and receiving department. That's what you do, is shipping and receiving. That's it, all day long. The orders come in, the orders go out.
Right. Yeah. You're like, you have a warehouse with a showroom.
Exactly.
Yeah, where you're just passing on everything. Yeah. So with Weapon X holsters and our Kydex holster company, started in my basement, kind of the same thing. I had a friend come. So I actually had a friend come to me. I don't know if I've ever told the story on the podcast, but Justin, I talk about Justin on the podcast a lot, and he always makes fun of me because he'll never come on, but he's always like, quit telling all my secrets on the podcast. So he came to me and was like, hey, I found these holsters. They're Kydex, they're this, they're that. We could make some. And he's like, let's just make a couple for our handguns. And so we made a couple of them, and they were garbage, right? And we didn't know what we were doing. And he's like, well, we could sell these. I bet we could sell these. And I'm like, there's not a chance we could sell these. And so we kind of played with it for a couple months, like when we had time. I had a spare room in my basement, so he'd come over and we just kind of play with them. And once we got to the point where they were actually like functional, we had a couple friends that were like, hey, I'm buying this gun. There was a big run on Smith & Wesson shields.
Right.
And they were like $200 or something. Wow. And there were rebates involved and all kinds of sales on it. And so we made like 10 of them for just the shield and sold all of them. And he's like, we can make a business out of this. And I'm like, nah, dude, there's no market for this. And I'm sitting here telling him like, this wouldn't work. We need to be a bigger scale than what we're able to do with full-time jobs. And a little bit down the road, I end up seeing the need in St. George for custom stuff.
Right.
You can order a base model black one on eBay, right? But nothing custom if you have a light or anything else or knife stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I kind of told him, hey, I'm going to take a run at this. I'm going to see what I can do. I'm going to push it out to the stores, see if I can get local stores involved. And he was working in Moab at the time. And so he's like, yeah, dude, run for it. See what you can do. And then, I think we're going on 9 years now.
That's awesome.
And yeah, we're in pretty much every major store in St. George.
That's awesome.
Nationwide. We even have a sister company off of it now called Quality X Kydex, mainly because I get censored being a Weapon X holsters.
We understand that.
Yeah. And so we kind of just made a sister company off of it and did more of a nationwide.
Yeah. You could buy kitchen knives at KG Cutlery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knife Guy Cutlery.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I never wanted it to be like this nationwide thing. Like I wanted to focus on St. George. I wanted to serve everyone here. I'm very, I like relationships. I like talking to people. I'm a talker. That's why I have a podcast.
You're good at it.
And so it was fun for me to have people come in and say, I've got this gun. My grandpa gave it to me. Yeah. You can't find anything for it. And I could take that gun.
Customer stories are great, and the relationships. That's what it's about, especially Mr. Knife Guy as well.
Yeah.
But
and so,
like you're saying, it's better to have the goal of being local and go global than the other way around. So kudos to you.
Yeah, it's hard to scale it back to take care of local people when you're, at least my opinion.
Yeah.
And was my model when I grew it, was that.
Yep.
So
Mr. Knife Guy is global. We ship all over the world.
So do you have any restrictions on selling stuff to certain countries or sending things?
Very few, actually. Europe has probably the stupidest knife laws. You cannot own a locking knife in England or Europe. So you have to have a slip joint.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of companies, Boker and like that make European versions of knives, Civivi. Everybody makes a slip joint so they can sell it in Europe. But I do have a lot of Europeans that come here on vacation and buy automatics and whatever they want, which is completely legal here in Utah.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the gun side of everything too. It's like the California regulated guns, right? So it's the same
Don't
thing.
even get me started. Knife laws are
Maybe
dumber
we
than
should.
gun laws, though.
Yeah, what are some of the dumb ones that you've heard? I mean,
Oh man,
knowing the gun industry like I do, I've heard like I didn't realize how crazy it was because I'm born in Utah. I grew up in southern Utah. I would sell a holster. I think the first one I'd ever heard of, I sold a holster to a guy in New York, and he told me the story of what it takes to obtain a concealed carry in New York, and I was blown away.
If it's even possible.
Yeah. Well, and I think he had some hookups with the sheriff and this different thing. Yeah. But what are some stuff that you've heard with knives, and what are some crazy stories about
you'll
that?
love this. And Utah is great because you can do class 3 and suppressed and stuff like that. Very conservative state. Same with Arizona is the same way, which is, again, where Mr. Knife Guy started. There are no knife laws in Utah at all. You can have anything, any type of auto. And I just have to smile. I have a lot of out-of-towners or even locals who say, I didn't know switchblades were legal. And my answer is always, well, I couldn't sell them if they weren't.
Yeah.
But, and here's a tip for your viewers. Don't ever, ever trust somebody else's opinion or knowledge of what a knife law is at all, because they're wrong, even if they're a cop. Sorry, police officers, but a lot of them don't know the law. And the only way to be for sure and know what the law is to go out to the Utah legislative site and read the criminal code.
Okay.
The current criminal code. That's the only way. And what I do is I just do a search for the word knife, knives, and weapon.
Okay.
And that'll probably, pretty much give you everything.
And that's state to state. They all have their own, right?
Yeah, every single state's different. So if you do that in the California legislative site, you'll come up with 8 pages of knife laws. It's stupid. It is so stupid. So let me just make some definitions. There's basically the types of knives that we sell. There's 3 categories. So we sell very high-end kitchen cutlery. Okay, it's a huge culinary community here in St. George. Some of the most amazing chefs I have ever met in my life. We've got Cliffside, we've got Ledges, we've got, I won't even try and name them all because I'll leave somebody out.
One I've been to recently was Wood Ash Rye. Do you know them?
Yeah, Wood Ash Rye. They're starting to get involved. And as Mr. Knife Guy is becoming more and more popular, we also sharpen. We're a full-service knife store. We sharpen. In fact, we do restaurant service for Texas Roadhouse. We sharpen in their parking lot every other Tuesday. We're there in Mavar Resort and San Hollow Resort and the Ledges. And, so we provide that professional sharpening. Now I'm going off on a tangent. I totally forget what I was talking about. So
different kinds of knives.
Yeah, culinary knives, and I'm super, super proud just to represent that community in St. George. I could just do that and do very, very well, because we don't sell cheap, crappy knives. When you're ready to graduate from your mom's Cutco knives, come see Mr. Knife Guy, and we'll hook you up with some handmade Japanese knives. And then the other demographic here is hunting. Hunting is huge, in southern Utah. So we carry Benchmade knives are really, really good hunting knives. They're a little pricey for a lot of people. On the other end, probably the lowest end hunting knives we sell are Outdoor Edge. We do Avalon, for those bow hunters and people who like the disposable blades. We take care of that. You could buy blades from us. And then also Knives of Alaska are probably the highest end hunting knives that you can get. They're made in Denison, Texas, and they're pretty awesome. And then my favorite demographic is the EDC community. That's what got me started. EDC stands for Everyday Carry, and knife nuts like me that carry 10 knives on them all the time, or even 2 or 3 or whatever. And that's your more tactical, your regular pocket knives. So the 4 types of knives that there are fixed blades. Okay, and your culinary falls into fixed blades. A fixed blade is a non-folding knife. And then you have folders, and those are in 3 categories. You have a manual folder, an assisted folder, or an automatic knife. And a lot of people get assisted and automatic confused, and they use those terms interchangeably, but they're not. So a manual folder opens by your power. And right now the the latest, most popular is a flipper knife, and they'll have usually ball bearings in the pivot and a little tab that you can just flip with your index finger, and it opens very, very fast.
Okay.
And that can be manual or assisted. So if you're familiar with a lot of Kershaw's, like the Leak, it's a very, very popular knife. That has a torsion bar in there that was invented by Ken Onion. And you get that knife open 30%, then the torsion bar kicks in and opens the blade the rest of the way. Assisted knives are legal in every single state. There was a big fight. You know, the liberals were trying to make that illegal, like an automatic. And
an assault knife, huh?
Yeah, right. It's so, I don't know, we'll get into this with the laws, and I'm probably drawing this out longer than it needs to be, but there's a lot behind it.
Good information, yeah.
Yeah. There is an organization, and I'm going to screw up the name. It's the American Knife and Tool Association, AKCA, something like that. American Knife and Tool, there's a T in there. And they're like the NRA for knives.
Okay.
They do a lot to help change legislation in different states to make autos legal. The thing with automatic knives is they have a stigma, you know, from West Side Story, and they look like a gang knife. And there's a lot of one thing that I'm trying to do is help educate customers. So Mr. Knife Guy is all about customer service, and we're about education. So when you come to the store, you're going to learn something. So we don't use terms like switchblade. That's a demonized term. Like, you don't say assault rifle.
Right.
So the correct term is automatic knife. It's an automatic knife. And some of them, the blades come straight out the front. A lot of people will mistakenly call that a stiletto. It's not a stiletto. It's an out the front, or an OTF. A stiletto is an Italian design. So the word stiletto in Italian means point, like stiletto heels.
Right.
You know, they're pointy. So a stiletto knife can be a manual, assisted, or an automatic, you know, and it can be a side opener or an out the front. It's the design, not the function of the knife.
Got you. I mean, it's like calling the tool a craftsman or something like that.
Right, yeah.
Like it breaks down to more categories.
So, okay, I'll get back to the California funky laws. So you can have an automatic knife in California if the blade is less than 2 inches.
Okay.
Yeah. Stupid.
I
mean, it does nothing to make the tool less or more dangerous or
well, that's what I was going to say.
Access.
Is there's some type of
no logic whatsoever. So there's a lot of 1 in 15, 16th inch automatic, you know, California legal autos out there.
Got you.
It's dumb. And then what's even worse though is that you can't have any novelty knives in California. Have you ever seen like the little lipstick? It looks like a lipstick, and you open it up and there's a little blade in there.
Yeah.
Illegal.
Okay.
You can't have a belt buckle knife. You cannot have a sword cane. You can't have.
We had like a pen. The back of it came
knives.
off.
Yeah, nothing that conceals or hides a knife that looks like an object other than a knife. They're completely illegal in California. It's so stupid.
So it has to look like a knife if it's going to be a knife.
Yeah, and then I'm sure. Oh, and you cannot have a double-edged knife. No double-edged knives, and no gravity knives. You can't have. So
what's a gravity knife?
A gravity knife is a knife that opens on its own weight with gravity.
Okay.
So, like the Civivi Elementum came out with a button lock. There's no spring or anything in it. You push the button and then you swing it or tip it, and the blade free falls open.
By gravity would come out.
Right.
Yeah.
That's illegal in California. It's just so dumb.
Is there other states in the U.S. that are crazy like that?
New York is bad.
New York.
There used to be a knife show in New York, and it's funny because, you know, most of the knives at the show are illegal in the States, so they quit having it there. It's so dumb. But the people who make knife laws don't know anything about knives. It's more of an emotional, you know, reaction, the stigma, and that's what I'm trying to do is to stop that stigma. You know, this is a cutting tool. There are thousands, tens of thousands of people who use a cutting tool in their jobs daily. You know, from chefs and cooks to emergency responders and construction workers, and I could go on and on and on and on and on. Forestry services, you know, a knife is a tool. Just like anything, you can use it for good or bad.
True.
And so it's interesting when people like from Pennsylvania or whatever come into the store. I had this couple come in and they were interested in the kitchen knives, and they looked at my tactical display. It's like, why do you have all these weapons in here? So we had a talk.
So we educated them.
Yeah. And I tried not to make them feel stupid, but kind of wanted to.
Yeah. Same thing. I'll have people come in that have moved into southern Utah from California or wherever.
Right.
And they're coming in, and we're a safe store, right? We're not a gun store with safes. We're a safe store.
Right.
And so people will come in and they want to look at just a safe that's not meant for guns. And I understand it.
So they can put their expensive knives in there, right?
Yeah,
Safe queens.
But it makes me laugh because I'm like, it's the same thing. You're just changing the shelves out most of the time.
Right.
But like, I'll have one, we'll open it up and say, oh, well, this one's for guns, right? And I'm like, well, it's for whatever you don't want to lose in a fire or a theft.
Safe.
Yeah. There just happens to be some racks in there that you can put guns in. Wow. But yeah, it just makes me laugh where people they'll get nervous about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's nothing to be nervous about. And then we do holsters there as well. And so we have a lot of dummy guns and the
trainers.
Yeah.
Red guns.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we actually have red, blue, green, right?
Right.
I actually started with blue guns. And then I realized that they actually make like fiberglass molded guns that are for holsters, and they even prep a lot of it. So it takes a lot of the prep time out of my
your job.
Yeah, prep time. It takes time out of my prep time. But yeah, I had no idea there was so much information about knives.
Oh, I could go on and on and on. We haven't even started with steels because the knife. It's all about the steel. Okay. It's all about the steel.
Well, because I was going to ask you, because I do a lot of barbecue, smoker, briskets, things like that. And awesome. I have Cutco. I've got there's another one, Mercer. Mm-hmm. I think I have some Mercers.
Mercers are good.
And they're great. I don't know how to sharpen them. And so that's half my problem. So I have all of these knives that are supposed to be like, household up end household knives, I guess. But I move through them so fast doing all the meat that we do at my house that they just get stuck in the knife block.
Right.
And I never sharpen them. And
bring them in.
So that's what I was going to ask. Like, can we get an upper end cutlery knife, and do you sharpen them? So you actually answered to my two questions.
Full service knife store. We charge $6 a knife for plain edges. And that's, up to what? If you bring in a machete, an 18-inch sword or whatever, we'll have to charge you a little bit more than that. Yeah. We do between $6 and $10 for serrated knives. Just depends on the approach and how we sharpen those. There's several ways we can sharpen those. The Cutcos, the plain edge ones are fine. They're serrated ones. They have a proprietary, it's called a double D serration, and they made it so nobody else can sharpen it. I do have some ceramic field sharpeners from Cutco for those, but they're not. If you've worn them down, you're going to have to send them into Cutco.
Yeah. Yeah.
On those, they're a pain.
Well, $6 a knife, that seems extremely reasonable. Are there other people in St. George that do that?
There was one, I don't know if I can say this.
Well, I guess you don't have to.
No, there was one other place when I moved here, and I went and checked them out and learned really quickly that I had more experience, shall I say. They charge $5 a knife. I charge $6 a knife, and so people ask me, they go, "Why would I pay you $6 when I can pay the other guy $5?" And I said, "Well, he does a $3 job for $5. I do a $10 job for $6. You can go to whoever you want."
Yeah, I'm not forcing you to come here. Yeah, you're like, go to him and you'll be back.
Yeah, I literally had Texas Roadhouse come to Mr. Knife Guy and beg me, plead with me to please sharpen their knives. Please take the contract to sharpen their knives because their knives were being ruined by whoever else was doing them. And so I've had a really good relationship with Texas Roadhouse. They go through,
I bet.
Knives. Yeah. And so I really don't make money sharpening knives. I love it. It's a service I perform. I try to break even, pay for my belts and electricity and the time that it takes me to do that. I offer like 1 day turnaround max. Sometimes you can just wait for your knives. I'll do them right there. But It's to get people in the store and
Sure.
to upgrade their knives.
Yeah. It's a service
Yeah.
that also brings in more customers, probably spend more money, everything.
But it's neat. It's a feel-good thing. I had one of the local chefs come in today, and he got a new vegetable chopper for Christmas that he loved, and he was using it in the restaurant and accidentally dropped it on the tile. And it had a big old ding and a roll in it, and he was so upset. So he came in today, and he goes, "What can you do?" And 10 minutes later, I handed him back a brand new knife. It's newer. You couldn't even tell, you know, or a broken tip. I can reprofile tips, do custom grinds, recurves, and things like that. And I just love seeing people happy and, oh man, this is sharper than it was when I got it from Benchmade. You know?
Yeah.
That's another thing too. People say, well, I bought this Benchmade knife and they have this life sharpening. You know, you can send it back to them and they'll sharpen it for free. Why would I pay you $6 to sharpen it? Well, let's look at that. So in order to ship a knife, if it's a manual or a fixed blade or an assisted knife, you can send it to them. It's going to cost at least $8 priority plus whatever insurance, right? Okay, so there's that.
Yeah.
And then you're without your knife for however long. I've seen them be over a month.
Dang.
And then you get it back and they just passed it on one belt. You can see the striations from the coarse grind in the blade. You bring it to me in 5 minutes for $6. I use 3 belts, and you've got a mirror polished edge that's better than factory. So,
Yeah, it's no brainer.
right.
It really is.
And if you send an automatic knife to Benchmade, there's federal law prohibiting shipping an automatic knife across state lines, unless you're law enforcement, military, or a bona fide dealer. So Benchmade will not ship it back to you. They'll ship it to the
Ship it to
nearest
you.
Benchmade dealer, which is Mr. Knife Guy.
Yeah.
So you might as well just have me take care of it anyway.
Yeah, you're just gonna you have to come here anyway to pick it
Yeah.
up.
Do you want it now or in a month?
Yeah. So how did the service come about with so you have multiple restaurants that you service?
A lot.
I mean, that's when you said that, I was like, man, that's not something you would think of that is a service that you would imagine is really needed. So how did they just came to you and then you said, well, let me reach out to these other restaurants, or how'd that happen?
It's kind of the other way around. When I first started, in fact, my wife and I had retired when we moved here. And, well, I got her business going, then she retired. And when she was done, I said, I'm going to get Mr. Knife Guy started up again in St. George and educate these people about good steel.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, go for it. And it was all grassroots. I didn't have money to, buy displays and, how much ever $100,000 it takes to start up a business. And so I started approaching gun store owners and just say, hey, do you guys offer sharpening service for your customers? If you would like to, then just collect their knives, fill out this form. I'll come, whenever, sharpen them, leave them, and we'll just split the profits.
Yeah.
And so Dixie Gun and Fish thought that was a cool idea, and Dixie Gun Works, which is right next door
to you. Yeah.
Yep. They said, yeah, sure. Sounds great. So I walked out of there going, oh, okay, good. I'm going to start, making a little bit of money so I can save up and get a place. And then a light bulb came on, and I went back into the store and said, hey, Chris, do you have some small retail space you could sublease me?
Yeah.
And he goes, sure. Yeah, there's 100 square feet right here. If you, I said, how about if I sell knives out of Dixie Gun Works? And he goes, I'll do it. I'll do it on 1 or 2 conditions. I said, what's that? And he goes, well, number 1, you sell Benchmade knives. I said, well, I'm an authorized premium Benchmade dealer. That's not a problem at all. We're in. And then a couple of the things that worked out really, really well. So I actually started out inside of Dixie Gun Works for 18 months. My first 18 months was in there. And it was kind of funny because I told Chris, well, after we agreed, he goes, by the way, good luck. I've tried to sell Benchmades here, and this economy, won't support it. And so good luck. And I said, you just leave that to me.
Yeah.
I kind of know what I'm doing here. A very, very successful store in Chandler, Arizona. And I told him, I said, you wait. Give me enough time, and there will be just enough people walking through those doors to buy knives as there are for guns. And he goes, yeah, right. Good luck with that. And then 18 months later, he's like, I got to hand it to you.
You did it.
Just as many, yeah. And then the space became available next door, and I wanted to expand my hours and have more room. And
how big's that space you're in?
It's 600 square feet. There's
Okay.
300 showroom and 300 in the back. We're in the process right now of moving our wall back towards the sharpening area so that I can have a larger showroom, put in some more displays.
Awesome.
We're expanding. Yeah.
That's great.
It's grown. It's really, really grown fast. There's a huge knife community in St. George, and I love hearing, I can name a handful of customers that come in and say, this is my favorite store.
Yeah. Well, like we had mentioned Tyler Campbell, and he
Yeah.
won't mind us dropping his name on here, I'm sure, but
His is one of my favorite customers.
Mine too.
He's just become a friend.
well, and our families are a little intertwined. So, my family knows his in-laws very well.
Okay.
And so I kind of knew that about it. And then when he came to me and got a couple holsters done, I'd found out he had married into the Garrett family. And I was like, yeah, I know Lewis is a year younger than me. And we kind of started talking about that,
That's
but he's very, and people that don't know him, you can go watch the first episode of our podcast and that's him. But I mean,
He's very friendly, very
Exactly.
intelligent, he's amazing. He's a good looking guy. He's a man's man,
Yeah.
totally man's man. He's former Marine, Las Vegas cop. And what I love is he's got 3 boys, 3 or 4 boys, and he teaches them so well. So he's into bushcrafting, which is another area of knives where you take fixed blades out into the wilderness and survive with, use knives to do your shelter and your fire and your, food and everything. And there's a brand of knives that are favored for bushcraft. There's like Tops in Ontario. There's several, Benchmade makes a bushcrafter knife, but Essie is a brand owned by Jeff Randall, who designs for Ontario Knife. That is the bushcrafter's knife. And they have a whole big, huge line, and I swear Tyler's got just about every single Essie. And so he'll take his boys out, bushcrafting one weekend, and he'll lay all of his knives out and say, okay, pick 1 or 2. And we'll go out and
pick your tool.
Yeah, pick your tool, exactly. And then he'll go and baton and beat them and abuse them, and then bring them to Mr. Knife Guy for sharpening, and just repeat that process. And it's really cool to see.
Yeah, he brought one of those down to me once, and I got to admit, he was sitting here talking to me about it. I didn't have a clue what he was talking about, and it was so over my head, and I'm just sitting there nodding like, and he was kind of, what you explained, like explains to me what he was trying to tell me, because he was telling me, I got this knife and it does this, and we do these wilderness things, and
a ferro stick and sparking.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's awesome, man.
Make a fire with a knife.
Yeah, I'm like, go have fun with your boys. Like we kind of bonded first over, I have 1 son, is all the only kids I have. And it was when I knew we were pregnant and I just found out we were having a boy, and I grabbed him and I'm like, dude, I need some advice here. Like, I don't know anything about kids, and I said, I'm having a boy and you got 3 of them. And him and I sat for like 2 hours at my house one day, just talking about being a dad.
Go to. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
So great customer. I love it when he comes to the store. I learned just as much from him,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love it when customers come in and say, hey, a lot of times I actually learn about new knives from customers.
Really?
I'm trying not to, I'm trying to be up on it, but it's such a huge industry and there's so many brands and everything and so many models that come out constantly. But he'll come in and say, hey, there's this new Brothers of Bushcraft knife. Can you get it? And how much for? And I will match or beat anybody's price. Even though I have a storefront, I'm very competitive with online stores.
Really?
And having been in the industry, 22 years, I have access to the same, pricing as everybody. So, yeah, I'll do that. I want to be your knife guy.
Yeah. It sounds like it. That's been a cool thing for me of having a storefront. And it sounds like you're on the same line as I am. And so I've got my truck, big white truck, says Weapon X holsters on the side of it.
I have Mr. Knife Truck.
Yeah. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And so it's like people will drive by Sunset, and I'm sure you get the same thing, and they'll just see my truck there. And like, they're not in the market for a safe or a holster, but they'll just roll in and just hang out for a minute. And
I think a lot of trucks just automatically turn into places like that.
Yeah.
Or the cruise control or something.
Yeah. I, on Christmas Eve, I believe it was, and I'm going to rat out some of my buddies right here, but I was at work Christmas Eve and I had a couple buddies show up and we're doing some crypto trading, some cryptocurrency stuff. And And next thing you know, like another one shows up and another one shows up, and there's like 6 guys. We're all sitting around my desk talking cryptocurrencies, and I finally was just like, "What are you guys doing? Like, how did everyone end up here?" Yeah,
don't you have families?
Yeah, and it was like Christmas Eve morning-ish, and I don't know if this is the case, but I think that they were just trying to get out of the house for a minute while all the chaos is going on. And then we were all hanging out at my store, and it just made me laugh. But it's turned into a place like that where a lot of buddies and like Tyler will be driving by and stop in. And
sometimes my store has been described as number 1 a candy store, and number 2 a barbershop.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, kind of the same thing. I didn't expect that going into a storefront for myself, and I've had multiple businesses for.
Well, that just shows you've got a cool store.
Well, yeah. Well, and I talk too, so I think people are like, "Oh, let's go see what Derick's doing," because I usually can sit down and carry a conversation with most people.
Do you ever wish they wouldn't
come in?
Because if somebody comes in and sees me at the register, they assume, oh, there's no customers, he's not busy.
Yeah,
but you're
I could
running
see
it,
that.
and it's like, no, I am updating web pricing for all the new map pricings that all of my all of my manufacturers have mandated. You know, I'll have Spyderco crawl on my butt if they go on my website and see I have something advertised for less than map. You know, so no, I'm actually really, really busy working, and I've got like 40 knives in the back room that need to be sharpened when I'm done with this, and 3 on the bench, and you know, but I will always stop what I'm doing and make time for customers.
Yeah.
I'll just resent them.
I'm
kidding.
Holsters is the same thing for me. I've come to a point where like I don't want to get all the tools out and do everything to do one holster. Like I want to line up 6, 7, 10, you know, and knock a bunch of them out. But I'm getting to the point now where I'm so busy with everything that like I don't even have time to go sit back there and knock out 10 of them. And so I'm in this weird limbo of like, when one comes in, should I just hammer it, or do I wait till 3 or 4 come in and hammer all 4?
And I'm sitting here thinking, what am I complaining about? You know, having tons of business and customers, I have no room to complain at all. And I'm so grateful to my customers. They're what made me who I am. And I love them all, and I will take time to talk to them and explain to them, no matter how busy I am.
Yeah,
you know, and I can't complain, but I still do.
You're obviously extremely knowledgeable on all of it.
Thank you.
And so I'm sure when someone comes in and it's, you know, whether it's me that doesn't know a ton about it or it's Tyler that knows a lot about it, and it just sparks up a conversation, and with the knowledge you have, it's easy to talk about it.
We're all learning. We all learn from each other.
Yeah. Well, so I was going to say education and products in general, any product, education is key, especially
it is.
Like bringing Chris back up, where, you know, Benchmade is hard to sell, and I don't know if the market's here and all of this and that. And then you're like, well, I've done this, I've educated, I've been able to push these products before, I think I can do it. That's where I've been with the Fort Knox safes, is they're a very high price safe, they're a quality safe. And
for a reason.
Yeah, and St. George tends to be more of like the good old boys, wants a deal,
penny pincher,
you know, And so when they come in and see, you know, a cheaper safe at let's just say $1,000 safe, and then they see a Fort Knox at $3,000 or $4,000, it's all that education.
Right.
And I think, I mean, you value that as well.
Yep.
But that's anybody that runs a business, especially with products, with, you know, tangible products. It's all about education.
It's funny because I'll have people come in and not know what they want. They need a new knife, but I don't know what I want, you know. And so I'll always start with, well, what's your budget? What do you want to spend?
Yeah.
What's the max you want to spend on a knife? And then we'll go from there. And they'll tell me, and it doesn't matter if it's $40 or $100 or, you know, or they'll say, I don't care, I just want a good knife. You know, we'll go from there, and I'll show things in that range and explain the different steels and the closing mechanisms and the locking mechanisms and the pivot mechanisms and the pros and cons. You know, low carry clip, is it moddable? Can you wave it? You know, there's just so many things to it. And then try not to give them too many choices, because sometimes I make the decision harder by doing that. But then I'll always say, so that's in your price range, but if you just outside of your price range, you know, this is what you get. And a lot of times people will end up spending double than what they thought they would for a knife just because they didn't know that's what they actually wanted.
Yeah. I think our selling process is extremely similar because every sales course or sales book or anything you hear, like you never want to start with budget is what they would say. Well, people will come in and they'll just kind of walk in our store, and we usually have, right now we're actually kind of low. We're getting shipments in next week, but we usually have at least like 20 safes on display. And so they'll come in and they'll just look around and don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And so our biggest thing is like, well, what size do you need? How much stuff do you need to store? And then I'll just flat out be like, what's your budget?
Yeah.
Like if you don't want...
Well, it sets them at ease, and they know that you're not trying to, push anything on them.
Yeah, and I've had sales that I've talked people out of the more expensive safe because I don't think it's their need.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're both customer-centric.
It sounds like it. Yeah. It sounds like we're the same person. We just sell two different products. Yeah. Well, we've got a couple minutes left. I think, we've got about 20 minutes left. Kind of go over a basic education. I mean, I'm new to the whole knife game, and I'm going to come do this with you anyway in person, but if someone's doing some barbecue meat type cutlery, what should I be looking for if I'm going to go look at something like that?
So in culinary, there's basically two schools of thought. There's the Western or the German knives, and then there's the Asian Japanese knives. So they each have their own pros and cons. In the past, I'm sure probably the most popular knives are like Henkel's and Wustavs on the German side. That's, when you're in high-end culinary, that's where you go. Wustavs are or Wustavs, the German pronunciation is Wustavs. They're about the highest end German knives that you can get for production. So we're talking production here. They use an X5015 chromoly steel. It's a German steel. It's very high end. It's very hard. So there's really 4 attributes for blade steel that you want to look at, and that's hardness, toughness, and you'd think those two are the same, but they're not. They're diametrically opposed. Corrosion resistance and edge retention. So those 4 things determine what type of steel it is. Hardness and toughness, if you think about if you were to put a knife blade in a vise and clamp it down and then bend it, if it snaps, it's hard. If it bends, it's tough.
That makes sense. Okay.
So there's they use this device called a Rockwell Tester, and there's several different Rockwell scales to determine the hardness of a knife blade steel. They use the Rockwell C scale. So anything over a Rockwell 58 is considered hard. Okay, and then they measure the toughness in foot-pounds. So hardness is good. That means good edge retention. But again, the harder it gets, the more brittle it gets.
Yeah.
So it's a balance of those things. And then you have steel is considered a stainless steel if it has at least 13% chromium in it. Okay, so like D2, your tool steels and like that have 12 or less percent. And I'm not going to get into metallurgy here. It's just now you know the difference between stainless steels and non-stainless.
Sure.
Most kitchen knives are stainless. So anyway, that's the German side. I used to be a Wustav dealer in my Chandler store. I am now exclusively a Shun dealer, and Shun is the highest end Japanese knives that you can get. They have 5 different lines, so there's something for every budget. There's an entry level all the way up to professional, $300 knives, which really isn't a lot. when you get into that.
I'm sure we have people come in that would disagree.
Yeah. Anyway, so you can always get better knives if you get custom knives. If you have a knife custom made, you can spend $20,000 on a knife. But the Shuns are fantastic. They have tons of, like the Japanese, they're thinner. They use VG10 as a very fine-grained Japanese steel as a core. A lot of them are clad with Damascus, 68 layers of Damascus clad around a VG10 core. Or Sanmai steel, you may have heard of that. If you watch like Forged in Fire, you learn a lot of those terms and stuff.
That's like I'm picking up half of this stuff, but some of it I'm like, yeah, I haven't heard of that.
So, yeah, steel is just something you have to learn over time. And there's new steels coming out all the time. The latest thing now is powdered steels. They are the latest, greatest, and a lot of the EDC guys are looking for the latest powdered steel. There's a lot of them come out. There's several companies that make them, and that's where I love to talk about steals when I get a knife guy come in and, do you have this and this and this with this and this, and talk in my language, and
Yeah.
that's fun. So there's also, you mentioned Mercer. There's a whole bunch of brands that are medium end brands like Victorinox and Mercer and Messermeister and Chicago Cutlery and Cutco and like that.
So I've got a few of those in our drawers at home.
Yeah. Even there's a new one called Meeson. So restaurants use those for house knives. That's what everybody uses for prep. And then in some of the finer restaurants, the head chefs, they have their own knives. So they'll bring their own shoons and nobody touches them.
Got you.
You know,
it's like your mechanics with their own toolbox.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Makes
what
sense.
it is. Their own tools. Yeah. They have a knife roll and they keep their knives in there. And some of these, like I was trying to get into Cliffside Restaurant to do their sharpening, and they do their own. Each chef takes care of their own knives. They don't have sharpening service there.
Got you.
And so now most of those chefs bring their knives to Mr. Knife Guy when they found out about me. It's kind of cool. And I'm honored too.
Sure.
I'm honored to be the guy that services the tools of the trade for some of these amazing chefs that put St. George on the spot for culinary.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat. I've met Chef Jesse at the Dixie Tech Culinary program, and a lot of great things happening here.
That's cool. I mean, you're a part of that community now, because
I am.
for sharpening well, not just for, but because you sharpen their knives and you service there.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It is. It almost brings a tear to my eye.
Where I kind of would draw a line to this is.
Did I answer your question about the barbecue?
Yeah.
So come in and I can show you a whole range of things.
Yeah, I know it was kind of a loaded question to, hey, explain this in 2 minutes, but
whatever you need, I'll take care of you.
Yeah, I'm gonna come in because I do a lot of brisket. I love smoking brisket. I was always doing ribs, and I was always a rib guy because I didn't know any better. And then when I had a brisket once, I got my new smoker, smoked brisket, didn't really know what I was doing.
And you're hooked.
And it was like the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. Yeah. And so brisket's the thing around our house.
Shun makes 2 brisket knives that are amazing. They're a little pricey, up in the $200 range, but they're, you'll use it forever. And
yeah,
I've never had any complaints ever, and they are an unobtainium right now. With the whole supply chain thing, getting knives from Japan is really, really hard.
I bet.
And they're back ordered to like June.
And you have some in stock?
I had a woman in Montana order. Well, she wanted 5, and she got my last 2.
Ah.
Yeah.
So I just need to come in and get on the list.
Yep.
Okay.
There's a list. Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't mind.
But I do have some that'll work for you in the meantime.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll come in. I'm going to pick a couple up. My other thing would be hunting knife. Of course, like I say, my buddy Justin, he'll make fun of me because I got to be able to shoot something before I need to use a knife. But I don't everyday carry a knife. I have 3 older brothers. 2 of them do, and it's just like the razor blade ones that just
Avalons,
that just change out.
Well, it's funny. I always tell people too. They're like, "Why do you need so many knives? Why do you even need a knife?" And it's funny. You don't realize how much you use a knife until you carry one.
When my brother Jason's around me, I'm always pulling his knife out of his pocket, and like I never think about it. But when he's around me, I'm always like, "Oh, he's got his knife. I'm gonna go grab it."
That's why I carry more than one. Is one that I use and one that I'll let you use.
Yeah. Yeah, Jason.
I think I've got Zero Tolerance. It's my favorite brand, and this is a $220 box cutter.
Wow.
There. Yeah, the KVT ball bearing pivot system. It's one of their latest models. I love Zero Tolerance.
Carbon fiber,
actually
everything.
Blow Benchmade away.
Really?
I would say.
I'm gonna have to come in, man. I need to
lose
get a
my
little
Benchmade education.
dealership
now.
Yeah, Mal, cut that out.
I am proud to be a Benchmade dealer for almost 20 years. They're great knives.
That's awesome.
So,
anything else you wanna jump in here with? I mean, that's cool. Is that
awesome? It's a flipper. It's a manual flipper.
Okay.
And it has a ball bearing pivot system.
So it's
with a frame
effortless.
lock. Yeah, it just floats. And it's tactical. You can open it or close it with one hand, either hand.
Yeah, not even having to worry about what's going on or using hands, or if you're fighting off someone or stopping a threat with one hand, you're flicking with the other.
Yeah, we got some really cool HK out the fronts that for self-defense.
Yeah. Well, out of respect for your time on a Saturday, we're doing this on Saturday.
I appreciate it. I'd love it. You get me talking knives and I can go on forever.
I had a thought. We should set up another mic and bring Tyler in.
Oh,
and then we could just all go.
That would go. Yeah.
So we'll have to set that up.
Okay.
I'll call Tyler and we'll set that up.
I'd love to do this anytime.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have you back on for sure. Anything else? Any closing thoughts? Anything you want to throw out there?
Come check out Mr. Knife Guy. My phone number is really easy to remember. It spells Hello Knife. Just dial Hello Knife,
nice.
and you'll get Mr. Knife Guy.
Location? Give us your address.
Yeah, we're at 1127 West Sunset Boulevard. That's in the Sandstone Business Center next to Star Nursery. And we're in the middle building upstairs. You'll see the signs.
Yeah. Banners
Sorry
everywhere.
about the 16 steps, but it's worth it. I promise you, it's worth it to make. I also have a lot of customers like with bad knees. I service a lot of our senior community for knife sharpening, and I do provide curbside service. So you can always text me from the parking lot, and I'll come down and pick up your knives and drop them off, and do all the transaction right there in the parking lot. So
awesome.
If that is an issue, there's no elevator, escalator, anything like that. We'll take care of you.
You don't even have to get out of your car.
Yep. And then www.mrknifeguy.com.
Instagram, social medias.
Yep, all of that. It's all Instagram is Mr.knifeguy.
Okay.
And Facebook is Mr. Knife Guy.
And hours at the store?
So we're open Tuesday through Friday, 10 to 6.
Okay.
Saturday, 10 to 2. And we're closed Sunday and Monday.
Okay. All right. Hey,
awesome.
Well, thanks for
It's
coming
been
in.
A pleasure. I've really enjoyed this. You're
a lot of information on knives. And I said, like, half of it I was picking up. So I want to come in now and learn a little more about it.
Yeah, I'd love to educate you about steel. It's all about the steel. And we can talk about Damascus and some of those things too.
Well, in that scale you were just talking about, I was looking at some hunting knives. So I can get some Browning knives and different things about Browning.
Yeah, don't do that.
And so I was doing some research on some, and I was like, I don't even think I want these.
No, you don't.
And so
they're imported from China. They're all like the Smith & Wessons, the Uncle Henrys, the Schrades. They're all owned by Taylor Cutlery and all imported from China. And they have cheap 440C steel.
And then they just license them out and put stickers on them.
Exactly.
Got you.
I mean, they're cool looking and everything. They just will not hold an edge.
Sure.
I got to tell you one quick story.
Yep.
When I was in Dixie Gun Works, there's an individual working there that was a guide and an outfitter, and very, very bright kid who knows how to reload and drop game. And I play this game. I like to look at, a knife in someone's pocket and try and identify it just by the clip.
Okay.
And so he was standing there, and Chris introduced me as, the guy that knows more about knives than anybody else. And Andrew's like, really? And he went to reach for his knife, and I said, hold on. That's a Boker AK-74 clip point. It's got AOS 8 steel and fiber reinforced nylon handle with a deep carry pocket clip. He goes, how did you know that? So I recognized the clip. And so he pulls it out and he goes, that's amazing. He goes, I'm really frustrated with this knife though, because I can't get through a deer before I have to sharpen it. And I said, well, AUS 8 steel, it's not very hard. Upgrade your steel.
Yeah.
He goes, what do you mean? So I explained a little bit about some powdered steel. I sold him a Benchmade with S30V, which is a decent premium powdered steel. And he came back at the end of the hunting season. He goes, what did he say? He said, 4 buck, 3 elk. I think it needs a touch up now.
He's so freshen it up, but it still probably go through a couple more.
The steel really makes all the difference.
Yeah, the first time I went hunting, I haven't been hunting for a very long time. I mean, I'm like my 5th or 6th year hunting. My family was not gun people, and so I didn't grow up hunting. I didn't grow up with guns. I kind of got into it myself, and my grandpa is a gun person, so he kind of helped me into it. But
grandpas are good for that.
Yeah. And I went with a buddy the first time we went, and the same knife had got 3 deer, and then I had the 4th deer, and we were struggling.
Tearing through it.
And I'm like, your knife is garbage, And he's like, no, dude, this thing's already got so many deer, it just needs to be sharpened. But so now I can go out there and be like, well, this is the knife now after I come and buy one from you.
Right.
All right.
And we can also teach you how to sharpen too. We carry we're authorized dealers for Work Sharp, for Wicked Edge, we carry strops, we carry electric, manual, stones, Spyderco, sharp sticks, everything for sharpening. There's not one right way. There's a way I prefer, but as long as you can raise a burr and sharpen a knife, we can teach you how to do that.
Awesome.
So that you can field sharpen knives and like a pro.
Yeah. Yeah. I could use all of that information.
Yep,
so
I don't mind passing on that skill. I think everybody should know how to. Every person, especially man, should carry at least one knife and know how to sharpen it.
All right. You're going to convert me. I'm going to come in and get, awesome. I'm going to get one of each, one of the three.
There's a lot of knife girls out there too.
Oh, I bet.
Tons. I've converted my wife. When we first met, she was into golf and she's like, "What's with the guns and the knives? I don't get it." And then I took her to the blade show in Atlanta and pulled her from table to table. And now she's Mrs. Knife Wife.
There you go. Mrs. Knife Wife.
Yep. She helps me a lot in the store and she can outsell me. She knows her stuff.
Like my wife, when I first met her, I was grabbing, I don't remember why. I was in her glove box doing something. There was a knife in there. And I was like, "What do you have a knife in here for?" You know, she's 120 pounds. And, and I'm like, "What are you doing with a knife?"
That's all the more reason to have one.
Well, and so she was like, "Well, I had to protect myself." And we still have the knife 10 years later. It's sitting in our drawer in our kitchen. And every time I see it, I like laugh to myself about that. But
so quickly about self-defense, and a weapon is a weapon, just like a gun, you need training.
Mm-hmm.
So if you carry a knife for defense, you don't want to take it away from you and use it against you.
Well, so that's why I was kind of laughing at it. I'm like, you're just carrying the weapon that you're going to get hurt with.
Right, right. And so there are a lot of local people that teach and train very, very well. And I've been honored to be asked to attend those events and provide self-defense knives at those events.
Cool.
So
you were going to talk leather real quick. Do you have a leather? We're going to drop his name.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lazy 3 Leather in Ivins, Utah is the only leather company that I work with personally. So when people want a custom leather sheath for either their knife or their firearm or their canteen or their Leatherman or whatever, Lazy 3 Leather will make that for them, and they do an amazing job. So I've got some samples and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I've got their website and everything that you can go check them out. They're a great local company. Support local.
Yeah. And like I was telling you before we started, with the Kydex, I get a lot of people coming in, and for certain guns, maybe they don't want to go Kydex, or they tell me they're quote unquote old school and they would rather have leather. Right. And we don't do anything in leather.
Yeah,
and so
Lazy 3 Leather and Ivins.
So yeah, now I've got somewhere to send everybody. So that's good information.
And they're reasonable
for me.
Too. High quality materials. You might have to wait a little bit because they're getting more and more in demand. And that just shows you how good they are.
Sure.
But the prices are reasonable. You can do a custom holster for like $75.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you can do it through Mr. Knife Guy. You can either go to them direct or you can do it through Mr. Knife Guy. It costs you the same.
Are they just doing it at home, or are they do they have a storefront? I hadn't heard of them.
Started out of their home.
Okay.
And they're expanding. They're also.
So it might be easier just to middleman you anyway.
The downtown St. George, there's what's it called? It's called Mofaco. Can I say that on the air? It's a co-op. And they're inside of there as well.
Okay.
And they do all of the shows, all the trade shows they're at.
Awesome.
As well. Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, Derick.
We're right on our minute that I told you we'd be done.
Cool.
So
I appreciate it. Mrs. Knife Wife appreciates it. And I had a blast. This is great.
Okay. We'll have you back on for sure. I think we should get you and Tyler on, so we'll make it happen.
That'd be fun.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Got an hour in. If you have any knife needs or just education, this has been educational for me. Even you need some stuff sharpened. I know I've got a whole drawer of stuff I could use sharpened.
We also do scissors, lawn tools.
Really?
Not just knives.
Anything with an edge.
Just about. We don't do saws, really.
Okay.
I'm just starting to do chainsaws. But I've done like snow cone machine blades. We've done ream cutter blades. I don't do electric trimmers at all. I will ruin those.
But chainsaws, you do that too.
Yeah.
So I should bring you mine.
I do have tools. I'll give you the tool. You can sharpen your own chainsaw.
There you go. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.